Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you'll know from a letter that was delivered to your office yesterday, I seek the opportunity to speak on a point of order to the pending decision that you'll be making, Mr. Speaker, on the appropriate nature of the amendments that I've tabled in relation to report stage for Omnibus Budget Bill C-59. The order to which I refer is Standing Order 76 sub 5, which of course empowers the Speaker to select or combine amendments as he or she thinks fit. In the annotated standing orders, there is additional guidance that, quote, the Speaker will normally select only motions that were not or could not be presented in committee. For greater certainty, the purpose of the standing order is primarily to provide members who were not members of the committee with an opportunity to have the House consider specific amendments they may wish to propose. I won't take much of your time or that of the assembled members, Mr. Speaker, in reviewing all the events that lead to the concern that I am now expressing, but I'm sure members will recall, and certainly you will, Mr. Speaker, that in exercising my rights as the Member of Parliament for Saanich Gulf Islands, recognizing that the rules as they exist to this point today, if you seek guidance from our rules of parliamentary procedure, allow a member such as myself, a member of a recognized party with fewer than 12 members, or an independent member of Parliament, have the opportunity at report stage to do something that members belonging to the larger parties no longer have, which is to put forward amendments that are substantive at report stage. Now, the reason for this rule came from the, I suppose you'd have to call it the evolution of rules in this place, which have a consistent trend line. The evolution of rules have trended towards larger parties suppressing the rights of smaller parties, and in this particular instance, Mr. Speaker, of a large majority party actually attempting to suppress the rights of an individual member. Now, this was done, Mr. Speaker, through a series of decisions. The Honourable Government House Leader tried at one point in late 2012 to put forward the novel notion that all of my amendments, and I was specifically cited in the Government House Leader's complaint, that all the Member of Parliament for Saanich Gulf Islands amendments should be lumped into one. The Speaker should pull one at random, put that to a test vote, and if that failed, none of the rest of my amendments should be put forward at report stage. And in your ruling, Mr. Speaker, in December of 2012, you put that notion quickly to rest, December 12th of 2012, in pointing out that that would rather defeat the purpose of legislative review. It would seem to suggest that might makes right, and why bother to study any amendments at all, or even to put legislation through scrutiny. Well, in making that ruling, Mr. Speaker, you gave specific note to two previous Speakers' rulings on this matter. Speaker Milliken, whom you cited with authority from March 29, 2007, who pointed out that, quote, neither the political realities of the moment nor the sheer force of the numbers should force us to set aside the values inherent in the parliamentary conventions and procedures by which we govern our deliberations. Further, Mr. Speaker, you cited former Speaker John Fraser from October 10, 1989, when he said, quote, we are a parliamentary democracy, not a so-called executive democracy, nor a so-called administrative democracy. And in making that ruling, Mr. Speaker, the clear guidance was in the following words, which was that, quote, unless and until new satisfactory ways of considering the motions of all members to amend bills in committee are found, the Chair intends to continue to protect the rights of independent members to propose amendments at report stage. And that is, of course, Mr. Speaker, your role, page 307 of the House of Commons Procedure and Practice, second edition, we find this clear statement of the duty of the Speaker, quote, it is the duty of the Speaker to act as the guardian of the rights and privileges of members and of the House as an institution, close quote. Well, Mr. Speaker, in making that finding, you went on to say unless and until a satisfactory way has been found. I believe must have been concocted in the Prime Minister's office because by the following fall, identical motions appeared in all of the committees that study legislation, and each identical motion operated under the fiction that it came forward from a Conservative member of that committee to create the new rubric under which I am now complying, which says that my amendments must be tabled, as all other members of parties under 12 members or independents, within 48 hours before the committee moves on to report stage. I've been operating under that, Mr. Speaker, and I have to say at every stage I tend to remind the chairs of committees before whom I present amendments. They are deemed to have been presented, and I am given generally about 60 seconds per amendment to explain the purpose of the amendment. Well, Mr. Speaker, as unsatisfactory as that process is, in the case of these amendments, and this is the crux of the case I put to you in pleas showing flexibility. I know the committees are in charge of their own process, but in this case, Mr. Speaker, I'm asking you to rule in relation to report stage. An opportunity that cannot be used is surely no opportunity at all, satisfactory or otherwise. In this case, on June 2nd at 9 a.m., all my amendments were due on Omnibus Budget Bill C-59. Subsequent to that deadline, 10 more outside witnesses appeared, as well as the Privacy Commissioner, as well as the Minister himself. Brand new, novel issues were raised by those witnesses, and my amendments attempt to deal with new issues that were raised after the deadline by which I had to submit my amendments. Unlike other members of a committee, I have no ability, neither does any other member in my situation, to put forward new amendments to deal with the new information. In other words, the ability of every member of Parliament in this place to do their work requires being able to weigh in substantively and I hope helpfully on amendments at report stage. In this instance, Mr. Speaker, I'm asking you please to consider in your discretion that the rubric under which I'm working, under these individual motions passed by all these different committees, which in some cases have meant that I literally race from committee to committee to submit my amendments in time and to speak to them, because the committees are often concurrent. But in the case of Bill C-59, yet again another omnibus budget bill, there was no reasonable opportunity to submit the amendments that I have included. I have not included any amendments that had an opportunity before committee, although they were rejected. I have put forward only amendments that were not possible to have been imagined, constructed, or drafted because the witnesses who raised the issues testified before the committee after the deadline for the submission of my amendments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I assure the member that her points will be taken into account before the ruling, or in the ruling. Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Toronto Danforth will have approximately 4 minutes before we move to statements.
On the point of order?
Sorry. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Chief Whip is
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague from Sanders Gulf Islands. I'll be very brief. I just want to inform the Chair and my colleague, since I wasn't aware for point of order prior to her standing in this place, and in fact I was somewhat tardy getting into the House to listen to her entire argument, I will inform you and my colleague from Sanders Gulf Islands that the government will be reserving its comments until the time we have a chance to see her entire point in the transcript form and reserve comments and make a due and considered response at our first opportunity.